All right, cool. So I'm here with Joshua Wilken,
Hey, y'all.
lead pastor, only pastor here at Trinity Baptist Church in Royse City. It's a pleasure and honor just to be able to sit here and share this with the world. You've been a really close friend and mentor of mine. We've known each other, what do you think, probably a year and a half?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe 2 years. I walked through these doors and we became like best friends.
Yeah.
But basically I just wanted to kind of but talk about how you ended up here at Trinity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I just want to thank you all for following along, and appreciate the time to share.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what exactly brought you here to Trinity? What was the journey like?
Well, it was an interesting journey, and I know that we've shared a little bit and discussed a little bit, but I've been here for just over 6 years total. My family and I have lived in Royse City for for almost 11 years. We moved in 2014, and I was not serving in the ministry for a few years, and I was, and then I took a few years off. And around the time that we moved here to Royse City, and I was just kind of at a point in life where I wasn't going to, be involved in full-time vocational ministry any longer, and I was just going to help churches in times of need, and so I saw Trinity and was around it for a number of years from the community perspective, from the outside in, and then in 2018, somehow I got connected with the chairman of deacons, Mario here at the church, and he had reached out and asked if I would come and preach. Their former pastor was going to be out of town for the weekend, and they needed somebody to fill in, and so I agreed to that, and I came and preached the one Sunday during the summer of 2018. And then I think it was in October timeframe again, same thing. Their former pastor was out of town, I think for a conference or for an event or something. And so Mario connected with me again and asked if I'd come back and preach. And so I did. And then in December of that year, the former pastor left in December of 2018, and so I came to preach the last Sunday. They just needed somebody to come for a little while, and so I came the last Sunday in December of 2018 to preach, and we've been here ever since. And so we, in January of 2019, I became interim pastor with no intent of being here. It was the intent and the goal was that it was only going to be a temporary thing, that I would be here, and serve as interim pastor until Trinity found their next pastor, and so. We kind of set that expectation, shared that with Mario and the church up front on the front end, and that was kind of the goal and the approach that I was taking, is that I was willing to help the church out as long as the church needed my help, but that was only until God led another pastor here to take over and to lead the church forward, and a few months in. The church was convinced, and they shared that often. They were praying about it, and they believed with all their heart that Emily and I and our family were supposed to serve here and be a part of this church and congregation. And so they would share it with me often, share it with us often at the end of service, we would kind of joke about it and things like that, but there was a sincerity, there was an authenticity to it. And a few months in, I guess March, April timeframe of 2019, our kids, who are now 13 and 9, so this is almost 6 years ago, 5.5 years ago, so they were pretty young. They approached Emily and I, and they said, basically, Mom, Dad, we don't want to leave Trinity. And, my first thought was, well, man, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming as to how that was going to unfold, or, I was not expecting this from the kids. And so neither was Emily, my wife. And so we were talking after that, and, we both agreed that, well, if we're honest with each other and honest with ourselves, we don't want to leave either. There's this authenticity in the people that are here. By this time, the church was only a couple of dozen folks, couple of dozen people. And, we were already able to provide some stability and just, it was a beautiful thing to be a part of. And, providing some stability to the church and helping them, kind of figure out the direction and the path that God has for them. And so, in talking with Emily, we both agreed that, while we weren't anticipating it or, expecting it to be this way, if we're honest with ourselves, with each other, with God, we're at a point that we're not ready to leave either. And so. We prayed about it and thought about it, and were convinced that God had a plan and a purpose. And so circle back up with Mario, who was also leading the pastor search committee at that time. And we had lunch, and I shared with him, I said, okay, here's kind of where we're at. I know that y'all already believe that God is in this. You've made that clear. Here's what happened, and here's what we believe. We believe that God's in this. And so we... I said, my only request is that you work the process as if I was any other candidate. And so I gave him a copy of a resume that I hurried up and put together, and they began to pray over it, myself and a few other candidates, for a few months, and it just continually, for that group, for the church, for us, we were all convinced that this is what God had in store and what God wanted. And so, in June, we made it official, and from January of June to 2019, I served as interim pastor. And in June of 2019, we dropped the interim. The church affirmed the call that God had here for us, and I became pastor. And then for the next 5 years, I served bivocationally. And so what that means is I had a full-time job in addition to serving as lead pastor for the church. And then through a series of events in 2024, I was with a nonprofit, got laid off, and did some temporary work on the side. And during those few months, God prepared the way for me to step into, for both us and the church, to step out by faith, where I became full-time in the role that I'm serving in. And God continues to lead the way and show us that that He's got great things in store for this community of believers. So
we talk about a big leap of faith, not only for you and your family, but also for the church. Mm-hmm. And what were some of your fears, I guess, leading up to that point?
The point of stepping out into the full-time role?
Uh-huh.
Well, I've served in full-time vocational ministry in the past and went through some difficult seasons, mm-hmm. a lot of hurt around that. Yeah. I just kind of, I was guarded and protected and kind of protected that side. And so the vulnerability aspect of it, mm-hmm. Just being vulnerable and allowing that, knowing that, hey, you never know what's in store. And so just, coming out of that and just being guarded and protected in that way, even though this is a very different community of believers, a very different congregation who are authentic and who genuinely love one another. Mm-hmm. There's still that from the human aspect of guarding, mm-hmm. That to being protected. And then also, not only did I not want to take that step into full-time vocational ministry, Trinity hasn't had a full-time pastor in many years either. And so there was a lot to think through and a lot to think about. And it was a big step on both sides, just to take that step. Mm-hmm. Just the fear of the unknown. Yeah. Is this really what God wants us to do? Mm-hmm. We believe that it is. We believe He's led us to this point. We believe it together, and then meeting needs, and all of those things around the physical aspects as well.
I bet it felt pretty good though, like stepping over that line. being able to trust God, and then now everyone's seeing all the growth.
Yeah.
And just the way the church is building itself right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's always incredible watching God move and God work, and especially when we're willing to take that step of faith. As scary as it can be for all of us at any stage of our life, it's incredible to step back. And now looking back, just like we were talking, the other day, I shared with you, just the, looking back over the last several years, I mean, you can see God orchestrating event after event after event to get us to the point to where we both, the church and my family together took this step of faith last July in order for me to move into this role, to be completely and totally focused on what God has in store here. And like you said, now, we fast forward and now we've officially hit over the 100 mark. We're averaging over 100 every single week. And it's incredible. We've got most of the rooms filled up. We've got Bible studies that are growing. We've got men's ministry and women's ministry and kids ministry and youth ministry and all different ages, multi-ethnic, and it's just multi-generational. It's just incredible to see what God is doing as a result of our small steps of faithfulness, that we get to be a part of His plan and purpose. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.